bienvenue à notre réunion de midi. Nous sommes le lundi 27 novembre. Permettez-moi de commencer en vous rappelant les réunions de conseil que nous avons aujourd'hui de l'autre côté de la roue. Les ministres du Commerce se réunissent aujourd'hui à Bruxelles. La Commission est présente par le vice-président exécutif et commissaire pour le commerce Valdis Dombrovskis, c'est lui qui va représenter la Commission. Le Conseil discutera de l'état d'avancement des préparatifs de la 13e conférence ministérielle de l'Organisation mondiale du commerce et des relations commerciales entre l'Union européenne et les États-Unis. La présidence informera le ministre du calendrier pour l'adoption et la signature de l'accord commercial intérimaire avec le Chili. Enfin, la Commission présentera un rapport sur la mise en œuvre et l'application de la politique commerciale de l'Union européenne. Une conférence de presse est prévue vers 14h45 avec le vice-président exécutif Dombrovskis. Vous pouvez le suivre en direct sur EBS. Puis également aujourd'hui, les commissaires Nicolas Schmit et Elena Dalli représentent la Commission à la réunion des ministres de l'Emploi et des Affaires sociales qui durera jusqu'à demain. Les ministres tiendront un débat d'orientation sur les paquets de temps du semestre européen. Ils discuteront également des progrès réalisés dans la mise en œuvre du plan d'action de l'Union européenne contre le racisme 2020-2025, entre autres sujets. En outre, les ministres s'efforceront de formuler une approche générale sur la proposition de la Commission relative à la carte européenne d'invalidité et à la carte européenne de stationnement. La commissaire Dalli participera à la conférence de presse qui suivra la réunion d'aujourd'hui. Elle est prévue à 17h15 plus ou moins et vous pouvez la suivre en direct sur EBS. Comme d'habitude, nous vous invitons à poser vos questions sur les sujets que je viens de mentionner lors des deux conférences de presse qui se tiendront aujourd'hui au Conseil. Lastly, let me remind you that High Representative Josep Borrell and Commissioner Janez Lenarčič are today in Barcelona to take part in the 8th Regional Forum of the Union for the Mediterranean. This year's meeting marks the 15th anniversary of the forum and brings together more than 30 participants at ministerial level from the Euro-Mediterranean region. The High Representative will take part in a press conference together with the co-presidency of the forum, which is foreseen at 1 p.m. I equally invite you to follow it broadcast live on EBS. And with that, we can now pass to your questions. I see one hand raised online. Jorge?
Hi, Arianna. I have a question about this new Defense of National Sovereignty law that the Hungarian government has tabled, because just today the Council of Europe Commissioner for Human Rights has raised the alarm about this law, saying that it could be weaponized against political adversaries and also provide an opportunity to silence and stigmatize independent voices and opponents, including NGOs. And now the Council of Europe is calling for this legislation for entering into force. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jorge. Christian has joined me.
Thanks, Arianna. Yeah, thanks. We are aware of the so-called sovereignty bill, which was tabled, and the related amendment to the Hungarian fundamental law. We are also aware of concerns expressed by some of the Hungarian stakeholders and also beyond that. Let me assure you that the Commission is following developments closely, and we are looking at all angles. We have a clear stance when it comes to supporting media freedom, a good environment for civil society, and promoting free and fair elections. Journalists are the watchdogs of our democracy, and they should be protected, not pressured. Let me remind that also the General Affairs Council discussed the state of play regarding respect for EU values in Hungary, and also raised the so-called Sovereignty Protection Bill in the last meeting on 15 November.
Thank you, Christian. Are there other questions on this topic? Do not see hands raised. Other questions for Christian on the various files he covers? Not the case either. Thank you, Christian. other questions for us today on different topics? Do not see. Mose, go ahead. Sorry, I had nearly missed you.
Including this brief press conference, maybe I should take the opportunity to ask a question. I see that Peter is here. It's about Israel-Hamas war. I noticed the latest statement by the High Representative last Friday. And also I think that where it says, for example, that Israel's security cannot be achieved by military means only. And that brings me to the question, where does that leave us with Hamas? Because in the High Representative's plan for the day after, I think it consists of 3 no's and 3 yeses, and one of the no's is that there can't be any reoccupation by Gaza, of Gaza by Israel, and neither can Hamas remain in power in Gaza, because that would be a very serious obstacle for any renewal of the peace process after the war. So I wonder if the Action Service and High Representative will present any plan for next Foreign Affairs Council scheduled, I think, in December, about how to achieve that objective of, let's say, dismantling Hamas and moving from power by, for example, non-military means. Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you, Mose. Well, we are in the process of ongoing discussions at various levels among various stakeholders. Right now, as Arianna outlined at the start of this press briefing, ministers, many ministers from European Union countries, from the countries of the southern Mediterranean, from the Middle East, and also from the countries representing the Islamic Arab special delegation or task force, if you want, are discussing exactly this in Barcelona. So I would refer you to these discussions. We have just published the opening remarks by High Representative. There will be press conference where maybe some more takeouts will be shared with the media from these discussions of such an unprecedented number of ministers, because this is really an unprecedented international event in Barcelona right now, discussing as the only point on the agenda, actually not the Union for Mediterranean, but the issue between Hamas and Israel, and the issue of further stabilization and arrangements in Gaza and for the possible Palestinian state. And regarding your question, if we are going to submit something to the foreign ministers, yes, that was the decision from last Monday's informal video conference that the High Representative called with foreign ministers of member states of the European Union, that for the upcoming meeting, for the upcoming Foreign Affairs Council, yes, in December, the EAS and High Representative will propose some kind of paper discussing with ideas, not solutions, of course, with ideas for the ministers to discuss regarding the stabilization and post-conflict organization in Gaza. So we are in a process, ideas are being formulated and discussed, so we are at the stage when this is happening, basically as we speak.
Thank you, Peter. Other questions on this topic? If so, please go ahead.
Hi, Beatriz Rios for Telemadrid. I'm sure that you are aware of the diplomatic spat that followed the visit of Prime Minister Sanchez and the Crow to Israel and Palestine. I was wondering if you would have a reaction to the accusations for Netanyahu that the Spain and Belgium are siding with terrorists after defending the respect of international law, and what's the position of the Commission on these things?
From the EU level, I can only recall that EU position is captured in all the latest documents agreed by 27 member states. So in this case, there have been a number of statements of the EU27 or declarations by High Representative on behalf of EU27, and the positions are captured there. There is no change in EU position regarding the conflict, regarding the terrorist attack from the 7th of October, and the latest issues between Israel and Spain and Belgium, respectively, these are purely bilateral issues between these countries involved, and they are not for us to comment.
You have a follow-up. Go ahead.
I was wondering if you're worried that the position as a sort of mediator in this conflict could be jeopardized by the tension between at least 3 countries, because Ireland has been also been somehow involved in a diplomatic spat with Israel regarding the future negotiations for a peace settlement.
The European Union is engaged heavily, very intensively, in ongoing international efforts to find a way out from the current situation. The EU position is very clear, it's unmistakable, it has been defined and conveyed on a number of occasions by High Representative, President of the Commission, President of the Council, and these are the decisions of the EU. So the EU policy is very clear, and the EU policy is always being the honest mediator, and this is what we are trying to do. The event in Barcelona, for example, today, is yet another example of what we are trying to do, and what the High Representative is saying and what is the European consensus. If we want to move things forward towards peace and stability, then there is a role for the European Union. And one of the key principles discussed and advanced in these discussions is that the solution will require more involvement from the Arab states, but also more involvement from the European Union. This is what we are determined to do. And we hope that any kind of bilateral issues, skirmishes, misunderstandings will not be standing in the way of achieving the ultimate objective, because the objective is for the benefit of people in Palestine and Israel, that they don't have to continue to go through the horrors they are experiencing now every day.
Thank you, Peter. David, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, David Carretta, Radio Radicale. Peter, today the High Rep published a tweet, and maybe also it was also in his speech this morning, saying that the settlements are a grave breach of international law, which is quite obvious. But then he also said that they are Israel's greatest security liability. I'm wondering, first of all, if my English is not subtle enough to understand the tweet. Second, if it is the position of the EU, and if you don't think that Hamas, Hezbollah, other terrorist organization, and Iran, for example, who want to wipe out Israel from the map, are security liability greater than the settlement. Thank you.
Thank you, David. What HRVP said or published needs to be seen in a context of what we are saying and advancing right now. High Representative already last week has said that the best security guarantee for Israel is a viable Palestinian state. And it is established position by the European Union for many years that the settlements are against the international law, that they are in breach of international humanitarian law, that they are illegal. And now when you take all this also in the context of the rise of the incidents or attacks by the extremist settlers against the Palestinians, so this is the context in which High Representative was talking. So if we are saying on one hand that the biggest or the best security guarantee for Israel is a viable Palestinian state, and on the other we see so many elements that are undermining the viability of a Palestinian state, like building of the settlements, enlargement of the settlements, increase of settlers' violence, then indeed the logical consequence is that yes, this is one of the biggest security liabilities. And then there is also another aspect to it, or another dimension if you want, and these are the immediate dangers and threats. And they are indeed, as you just enumerated, among others, the terrorist attacks from the 7th of October, the activities by Hamas, and also position of some countries that do not recognize Israel and go on publicly with threats against the state of Israel and its existence. So one needs to see this in the context of what we are trying to achieve, what we are currently discussing, and this is all about a future Palestinian state living side by side in peace and stability with Israel, but a Palestinian state that is viable. And settlements are a big obstacle to achieve a viable Palestinian state. But this is a position of the EU established long ago and repeated many times in the past already.
Thank you, Peter. Other questions on this topic or relating to the situation in the Middle East? Yeah, not on this topic, but for Peter, go ahead because I don't see other hands raised in any case. Thanks.
Good morning, this is Pietro Guastamacchia from ANSA. A question on the OSCE Ministerial Council that is happening Thursday in Skopje, North Macedonia. First question, how will be the European Union represented, at which level, so if HRVP is going or not? Second question, the Russian authorities expressed they're willing to join the meeting at the highest level, so Foreign Minister Lavrov. There are talks to allow Foreign Minister Lavrov to land in Skopje on Wednesday evening or Thursday morning. that means he will have to fly through European Union airspace, as far as I'm aware. So what would be your reaction if one European country allows Foreign Minister Lavrov to fly through their airspace? And lastly, how will be your level of engagement on multilateral and bilateral ways if Foreign Minister Lavrov arrive at the Ministerial Council? Thank you.
Thank you. I would be very hesitant to confirm anything regarding HRVP's participation because due to the current developments on the international scene, his program is really changing almost by the hour, but it is foreseen that the High Representative would be joining at least part of the meeting of the OECE, and even if he would not be able to participate, then we will specify then the exact arrangements closer to the date. But then the EU is always represented at appropriate level, be it Secretary General of the EAS or Political Director or the Ambassador of the EU to the OECE. So we consider OECE as a very important organization, very important platform for European security. So we are always very much interested to be represented there at the highest possible level. When it comes to participation of Lavrov, well, he is under sanctions, of course, but the sanctions have always a derogation or exception, if you want. And this is linked exactly to the participation in multilateral fora such as UN or OECE in this case. And also those under sanctions can also travel into the European Union and countries which align with the EU sanctions if the objective or purpose of their stay is linked to the reason why they were listed. And logically, OECE, as Organization for Cooperation and Security in Europe, has a very important part of its agenda, the current aggression by Russia in Ukraine. So this would be okay if countries decide to allow the plane of the Russian Federation to fly over their territory, or if the authority in North Macedonia allow the landing and participation of Lavrov in person in Macedonia. That would not be a violation of the sanctions. And of course, the engagement, it's always good to engage face-to-face so that we can confront Lavrov with the illegal actions by the Kremlin regime and by the lies he's spreading, etc., etc. So every international forum, when we can talk face-to-face, deliver our positions and confront them with their illegal behavior, with their lies and manipulations, is good because it's part of our approach to the conflict Russia unleashed in Ukraine. So confronting them, isolating them politically, but also conveying our messages and arguments to them so that they hear it and they can consider changing their destructive illegal behavior.
Thank you, Peter. Other questions on this topic? Not the case. Other questions for Peter on foreign affairs? Not the case either. Thank you, Peter. Other questions for us today? David, go ahead.
Thank you, Arianna. The question is for you, in fact, because today the President of the European Council is in Budapest, basically to talk with the Prime Minister on the issue of Ukraine, because Viktor Orban sent a letter to Charles Michel last week. I'm sure that you have seen that letter because it was shared by the Hungarian authorities. Basically, Orban is saying that he will not approve any of the decisions that are expected on Ukraine. And I would like to know if President von der Leyen is planning to outreach Prime Minister Orban to try to solve these obstacles to the EU actions on Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I think, the President of the Council is traveling to Hungary, as he has announced. This is also in preparation of the UCO meeting of December. I would not have any specific announcement to make on contacts at the President level, but of course the Commission is always in contact with all member states. There is a Council upcoming. Our proposals on the funding to Ukraine and on the MFF are clear. We have made them several months ago, and we, of course, urge speedy agreement on them in order to be able to deliver the funds as quickly as possible in good time. Other questions on this topic? Not the case. Other questions for us today? Not the case either. So thank you very much. See you tomorrow at our midday press briefing. Goodbye.